Hey art people, welcome to episode 7 of Drawing Inner Strength, and I'm very excited that this is not another stippling video. It's done. So today's good news is that 4 high school students in California created a COVID coloring book. It started as a school project, but it was what their teachers thought it was a really great idea and could be a lot of help. The whole concept was that this coloring book would help kids understand the pandemic and feel less confused and I guess maybe scared about what's going on, which is a great idea because I know plenty of adults who are confused and scared, like it's crazy. So they created this coloring book. They created an organization to kind of help any proceeds that they make from that coloring book go towards relief and helping with the pandemic efforts. And I don't know why I'm tripping over my words, but they have sold over 500, so that's really great. I think it's gonna help a lot of babies, help a lot of people, so good for them. I will put a link to that story in the description. So today, I will be adding the finishing touches to the hair, and I'll be doing that by adding lines like those here into all the blocked out highlights that I have. And then I will also work on deciding what I want to do with this area. So the original sketch that I have that this drawing is based on, it was not as long as this. Like I really only had this kind of area, like there wasn't a lot above and below the face. So I'm deciding well, not right now, but as I start working on this, I'll decide if I want to keep this space or if I want to get rid of it altogether, like cut it off or crop it out or whatever. Or alternatively, I could just cover that area with some of the words and line work that I'm going to be adding to the background. And that will probably make more sense once I actually get started adding that stuff in. So that will probably get decided, but right now the focus is just getting the hair done. So the reason that I like adding lines like this into these empty spaces that I have is that it takes away that look of just plainness. I think it adds more of a pop to it, and it makes it look a little shinier almost, because I want the hair to look like it's catching the light. And if it's just big empty spaces, I guess, for lack of a better word, it's really the only word I can think of. You know, the lines add a little more detail, and I think it just makes it look more special and more interesting, really. Like when it comes down to it, I just think it's a lot more fun to look at when there's more movement in there, and the lines, they really do that. And it adds a little touch of realism without being too realistic. Like, I want it to look like hair, and obviously hair is, you know, a bunch of fine lines. But if I spend a lot of time trying to make it look exactly like my hair, for instance, it would just, I feel like a lot of these fun details, like the movement of the lines and the swaying and the up and down, would get lost because it would just, there would be so many lines that would look black. And so I like just adding like these faint lines of movement. And then I will add like more lines here, for instance, to differentiate, and also because the way I picture this section is a little more in shadow than the section above it. But I still want to keep some of that negative space to give it that sheen. We added that detail in like 2 or 3 places, and already I'm just in love with it. So I'm gonna add it everywhere else, and I can't wait to see how great it looks when I'm done. pencil to decide ahead of time where I want these lines to be. I'm just going directly in with the pen and making those decisions as I go. And part of that is because it's easy. And since I've already defined the direction that these curls are moving in, there's not a lot left to decide about how the lines will move. It's really just, you know, how many lines am I gonna put and how light or dark will they be? So I feel comfortable just going in with the pen and making those decisions, or, you know, making those lines as I go, because there isn't a lot of guesswork at this point. And it's relaxing, it's faster than if I were to try to go in with the pencil and then go over them with the pen. And a lot of times when the lines are this small, I end up making changes anyway if I do go in with the pencil. So at this point, I'm happier just going in with the pen. I feel like I said that in like 30 different ways. To elaborate a little more on what I said about the darker and lighter lines, let me zoom in a little bit. You can kind of see, so like here, I know that there will be shadow from the ear, so I'm making very defined dark lines that will now fade into lighter, more delicate lines. And up close, it doesn't look like I'm doing too much, like it doesn't look like it's gonna make that much of a difference. But when I look at the picture as a whole later, or you know, when you take a step back, those little subtle differences are apparent. And so really, that's what I think is so fun and interesting about all the different things you can do with just a black and white image and just like one pen and a white sheet of paper. Like you can create so much depth and play with light and shadow in ways that I think are really underestimated, in ways that I just remember like being in high school and deciding that I really just wanted to work in pen, and people were kind of surprised by that, and they felt like I would be, like I remember my classmates were like, well, you're gonna be so limited, like you can't color or shade with a pen, and they were wrong. And I mean, they were wrong because we were in high school. Like, it's not like we were seasoned artists, but it's still, I remember kind of thinking like, oh yeah, how am I gonna do this? But I just really liked working only in pen, and I decided to just stick with it, even though it seemed up front like it would be more limited than, you know, if I incorporated, you know, color. And yeah, you can't do everything, which is why I am using graphite like for the skin, but there's a lot that you can do, and I think it's really cool and really interesting. And of course I have to mention there are artists who can do even stuff like this with a pen, and it's gorgeous, but I don't know, creating that softness in ink for me is something I've worked on and I'm still considering, but right now I like the way pen and pencil play together, and I talked about that a little bit in one of my other videos, and I feel like at this stage I'm comfortable working this way, and I would like to just lean into it and kind of see like what the rest of my work will look like when I bring these two together, instead of trying to force myself to make work the way I see other people making work, if that makes sense. Like, yes, there are artists I see who can accomplish this in pen, but that doesn't mean I have to do it. So now I feel like I'm going back and forth because I'm saying you can do a lot with pen and then you can't do everything with pen, but really, like, I'm just talking about like the realm of my illustrations and like what I'm doing here. So I guess I might be overthinking my explanation right now, but I just wanted to acknowledge that and also like give context to what I'm doing here. So maybe that got off the rails a little bit, but I'm just gonna stick with it. It's here in the video. Okay, the hair, I'm so far away. The hair is done. So that really didn't even take that long, but I think it looks worlds better already. And I really love how just like a few lines here and there kind of creates like the illusion of like millions of little hairs. So that's done, and now I can move on to the part that I'm honestly not really looking forward to. And that is the defining of this area and what I'm gonna do with it. And so one reason I'm really just not excited about this is because I don't know what I wanna do with it. And that's never a great feeling in general, but especially not when you are recording a video. But I decided that my goal was to only work on this on screen, but you know, like during the video. So I didn't want to cheat and like, you know, do stuff off camera, because that's like the whole point of this little project. Okay, so here's the one arm, here's the other. I really don't know how much else I like want to add here. So I'm making this kind of like, you know, like I guess a tube top type thing. I don't know what the right word is for shirts that like you can pull the sleeve down to here. I had one on when I like drew this, but don't know what it's called. I could Google it, but I don't feel like doing that. Making some noises as I shift my tripod. So I'm kind of gonna just wing it here, because whatever I do with this bottom half is gonna get covered with lines. Like, that decision I have made. So the question really is like, do I even want to add ink to this right now? You know, I guess the answer is yes. Just so that there's some permanence and some consistency. But I'm really just like, oh, can you tell that I'm not excited about it? So then that kind of leads me to the question, because my whole approach lately has been that there's no rules, and I can just make the art that I am comfortable making, or not necessarily comfortable, but the art that I like to make and the art that looks good to me and feels good to make. And so I don't have to add ink here. Pending, loading, buffering. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I've thought about, you know, what could I do with this shirt to make it like interesting but not take away from the concept. So to reiterate, I'm going to, the whole like concept of this piece is, you know, resisting and reacting to when you hear hurtful things, when hurtful things are said about you. And it's going to be illustrated by having some of the things that I've heard over the years written here, and then kind of like dissolving into lines, which will at some points hit home by like actually bumping into the subject. Sometimes they'll just pass right over, and sometimes they'll completely just pass behind. So, you know, just picture like lots of lines like interacting in various ways with our subject here, which, you know, maybe me, whomever, it doesn't have to be me. So the more I'm thinking about like what kind of shirt would this person be wearing, I really don't like it because it's like, you know, first of all, a shirt adds like gender in a way because it's like, is it a plain t-shirt? Is it a fashionable shirt? Like blah, blah, blah. And I don't really want, you know, if I draw a shirt, I want it to look cute, but I don't want someone looking at the picture. Like I don't even want the shirt to like play into what the audience is thinking at all. Like, you know, oh, like why did the artist make the shirt that way? Like I thought about what pattern would I put? And then I thought, well, no pattern at all because I don't want that to take away from the words. And then I thought about, well, it could just be a plain shirt, but I've already kind of eliminated like it just being a plain t-shirt by having like exposed collarbones. So, you know, then it becomes like the cutoff tube thing, whatever, and those are very specific. I don't know, they're usually, like I could just have it look like this, like plain white, you know, with some texture, and I do love drawing textured clothing, I've talked about that, but I just don't like that idea. Like it doesn't feel right, it makes me like, ugh, like it makes me make that face just thinking about like, what will the shirt look like? So I've got my ruler. This is a big change, but so like, I think that looks better, right? And then taking this down, like making it a square. And I really like that idea. So I'm going to, it's happening. See if I can draw a straight line. I'm going to just completely take this out of the equation. So how high? Probably like right here. And then I'll just take that shirt line out completely and have it be more skin. So I am a little saddened to make this piece a little smaller than it originally was. Like I'm losing the space. It's not gonna be 18 by 24 anymore. But honestly, I feel such a wave of relief having what feels like the right image and not having all this like extra space just for the sake of having a bigger drawing. So I'm going to add some, you know, some more of the chest here and not have to worry about making a fashion statement down here. I can just worry about, you know, getting the shading right, having the skin look like skin or whatever, and then I can just focus on getting this done. Oops, my camera was not recording, but I added, like the whole time that I was adding shading, I look over and I see that the camera's falling asleep because it's not doing anything. But I added a ton of shading here. Really annoyed that none of that got recorded, but whatever. And then I'm just gonna add some more shading right here because I haven't like sprayed anything on this to keep, you know, the graphite from fading, and as I've moved across it, stippling and drawing, some of the shadows have faded a little bit. So I'm just adding those in right now. So annoyed that you didn't get to see me do any of that, but I mean, basically I just did what I'm doing right now. And I will keep some of those white spaces here to be kind of the highlights, and we'll probably, I mean, honestly, I'll probably just keep it that way. I haven't decided if I want to go in with, you know, like an H or something and make it a little more gray, but honestly, I'm happy with the way it looks right now, and I don't think I need to go in and add any more, you know, color or whatever, but maybe I'll make some changes after, like when I'm looking at it as a whole, but I don't think so. I think I'm kind of reaching the point where the decisions that have been made are going to stay that way. Because, I mean, honestly, with art, just like with anything that you're creating, like you could make changes and adjustments to it forever. So at a point, you just have to tell yourself, like, okay, this is good and I'm done. Okay. I'm not done yet, so I'm just gonna add a few more deets here. And one big thing that I am going to do, I think, well, not yet, but I'm going to get like a 5. Like I said, this pen is a 1. I think I'm gonna get a 5 and go over these edges and make them thicker. So right now I'm actually, since I don't have to worry about this anymore and I have a little more time, I'm just gonna add some more details to the lips. Boop, boop, boop. Just to make her look a little less blank. So big changes were made that I hadn't even planned, but I feel like I'm in a good stopping point today, and I'm also feeling so good about the decisions that were made. So, oh, I'm just noticing that the ear is like completely white. Let me just fix that real quick. I'm just gonna look at that. Just when you think you're about to end the video. More to be done. This might be the fastest I've ever shaded an ear. Okay, so face is finished. As far as, you know, I feel it's finished right now. Who knows if tomorrow I might look at it and see something like what just jumped out at me with the ear. But at this moment today, face finished, hair finished, chest finished, no shirt. So tomorrow I'm going to add in the words that will bring the piece home, and then I'm going to, the last step will then be to erase like down here, which I actually might just cut that off, but some of the, you know, blurring has bled into some of the negative space here, and like on the hair that should be white, so I'm going to clean that up as the last step, and then Inner Strength will be finished. I can't believe it. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'm curious what you guys think about, you know, turning it from rectangle to square. I'd love to know what you think about the hair and using few lines to imply many, the shading, all that stuff. So again, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, tell your friends, and yeah, let's see how this goes. And I will see you next time.